Hello and welcome to Beauty Will Save the World. Today we have an interesting background of still life that I did some time back during the summer, and I just wanted it to cover the real brilliant colors and the joy of summer. Anyway, today we'll be looking at this really nice copy here of ONO, KOMACHI, and IZUMI SHIKIBU. It's the Ink Dark Moon. It's a translation anthology of those two poets, ONO KOMACHI and IZUMI SHIKIBU. It's a translation which is led by Jane Hirschfeld, who is a very well-respected poet in our own rights. So, The Ink Dark Moon, translated by Jane Hirschfeld, with Mariko Aratani, and a foreword by Nikita Jail. So, how I came to learn about this book, I was on YouTube, and there was a certain video, like sort of conference of different poets and critics who were discussing the genre of lyric poetry, and most of them were drawing from poets of a long time ago, classics, and probably discussing the history of lyric poetry and from antiquity through to the Middle Ages, to the medieval times, to the Shakespearean times, to the present. And the presentation of Jane Hirschfeld that I really loved, because she really covered sort of diverse cultures and the lyrical tradition of poetry. It was so nice to see such an arrangement which looked like some very important corporate business that is discussing some important business deal. But in this time, in that case, it wasn't that, but actually people discussing lyrical poetry. I mean, it was interesting to see that so serious-looking people sitting around to speak of this sort of beautiful lyrical poetry from all over the world. It's refreshing to see that. And so, anyway, a short sort of introduction of the historical place of these two beautiful poets. This is Japan in the Middle Ages. That is before even the Europeans made contact with the Far East, I think. And this is like maybe 100 years, 200 years after the High Tang, so the Tang dynasty of China. Who I've read before in this channel, Du Fu, Wang Wei, Li Po, and that brilliant sort of group of poets. So to just put it in a historical perspective, China had really developed its poetic tradition, I think, way longer before Japan had, and Japan borrowed the literary tradition a lot from the Chinese. And at this time, most official writings and most learned people were actually using Chinese, and Japanese was like used by the local people to talk. So Chinese at the time was like Latin in the Middle Ages, around this time as well, in the Middle Ages, when Latin was the official language of the learned. So in Japan, Chinese was the official language of the learned. But these women, I think, brought Japanese to the forefront, because most of them, were not eligible for public offices and official sort of ranks, and so they took that time to develop the Japanese language instead of Chinese, and of course using Chinese characters, but writing in Japanese, and starting that sort of tradition of making rich the Japanese language. So Onono Komachi, around 8, yeah, 8 something, that's 9th century AD. This is a very long time ago, and going through this, you sort of get a feeling that these women were so sexually liberated. How they talk of their lovers, they had a sense of freedom. I don't know, maybe because they were noble women, or they engaged with the nobility, but they had, it's such a nice to see how they were so well spoken, even though they were not considered like very learned according to the standards of the formal system at the time. And so you can tell that poetry was a very important element of culture at the time. And if you had a crush on somebody, if you're interested in someone, you wrote them a little poem and slipped it to them, and your chances depended on how good your poem was going to be. And if they replied, if like a woman, you wrote a poem to a man and he replied, and you're not impressed with the poem he replied back with, then you could kick him out and find a better poet. So poetry was very important in the social circles, and the better you could write beautiful poems, the higher you could get into the social ladder. And these women writers became even like the mistress to the emperor or something. I mean, that's how high you could get, or you could be women in waiting for a princess or the empress. People wanted to surround themselves with learned people and beautiful people who could they brag that they're patrons of the arts to the most established poet of the time. So what I like with this copy or the poems, they're very short poems, 5 lines. I'm not really versed with the technicalities of form and style of the time, but what you realize, they're very short poems. It's a book you can read in one sitting and go through it all and finish. But one reading is not enough. They pack so much into those few lines, and every time you go through them and try to detangle them, it's the fun of the reading process. So being that they are so short and the book is not too voluminous and one page just covers like one short poem, it's very convenient, but also very lovely and charming at the same time. And for a video like this, it's a book I can open any page randomly and read from, and it'd still be okay, it'd still be good. So maybe I'll read a few poems by Onono Komachi, then I read another by IZUMI SHIKIBU. They lived very interesting lives. It's if you do your sort of research on their biographies, you'd be amazed how they lived. So it gives you like a glimpse into that classical Japanese culture and maybe how it influenced the future generations of writers in Japan. So I'll just open a random. The first poems are by Onono Komachi. So let's see this. There's this one that I really loved, but I don't know. Let me start with that. Okay, just a minute. Oh, I should have highlighted these. The Autumn Nights. Okay, this one is that. They don't have titles. The autumn night is long only in name. We have done no more than gaze at each other, and it's already dawn. Just like that. Another one from ONO KOMACHI. If this were a dream, I would surely see you again. Why must waking love be left incomplete? The cicadas sang in the twilight of my mountain village. Tonight, no one will visit save the wind. Did he appear because I fell asleep thinking of him? If only he had known I was dreaming, I'd never have wakened. Truly, now I've grown old in the winter rains. Even your words of love have altered falling leaves. Sent in a letter attached to a rice stalk with an empty seed husk. How sad that I hope to see you even now, after my life has emptied itself like this stalk of grain into the autumn wind. And maybe the last one from ONO KOMACHI. Okay, there's this one about the clouds that I really loved. Just a second. Yeah, this one. I thought those white clouds were gathered around some distant peak, but already they have risen between us. Then let me read a few ones by IZUMI SHIKIBU. I think she's the one with most entries here. IZUMI SHIKIBU. When the autumn wind blows from Tokiwa Mountain, my body fails, as if blushing with the color and scent of pine. Last year's fragile, vanished snow is falling now and again. If only seeing you could be like this. Although the cricket song has no words, still, it sounds like sorrow. Undisturbed, my garden fills with summer growth. How I wish for one who would push the deep grass aside. You can detect the sexual innuendos in poems like that. Undisturbed, my garden fills with summer growth. How I wish for one who would push the deep grass aside. A very clever way of being direct and not being vulgar at the same time. You ask my thoughts through the long night. I spent it listening to the heavy rain beating against the windows. This heart longing for you breaks to 1,000 pieces. I wouldn't lose one. Another one. In my loneliness, I break and burn twigs for the sapping fire. In this wintry mountain village, hoping the smoke at least won't leave. You can tell themes of longing, themes of loneliness, themes of sexual desire that move around both of the poets. Okay, very witty as well. Okay, there's one where somebody criticized her ways, like probably saying that, you know, she was a woman of ill repute, and then she wrote like a reply to that, and It was so witty and would really silence somebody who was like trying to judge their life, like mind your own business. Anyway, I can't find it. I was going off the way of just opening, random pages and reading from, but the particular poems. Then I thought, oh, this one I really need to read for them. So that's why now I have to look for them. Okay, I think I found it. Seeing someone holding my fan, the courtier Michinaga asked whose it was. When he heard it was mine, he took it and wrote on it the words, "Fan of a floating woman." I think floating woman in this sense, they mean, the woman who with loose morals, like the waves will take her anywhere. So she replied to this and said, "Some cross the paths of love, some don't. Unless you are the watchman there, it is not your right to cast blame." So anyway, if I started reading, I would end up reading the whole thing, but I would highly recommend. This is a vintage classics. I got it online. There were other different copies, but this was the most affordable, and I ended up not being disappointed with the quality of the print and the whole book. So you can check it out on ONO KOMACHI and IZUMI SHIKIBU in an anthology and translation by Jen Hirschfeld, The Ink Dark Moon. So go check it out, vintage classics, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did. Bye bye, and like and subscribe. Beauty will save the world.